Hey, welcome back to Terrorverse TV. It's John Altarelli, and today I'm doing a topic I never thought I would be. If you like the content, please subscribe, like, hit the bell for updates, and comments. Obviously, are welcome. Let's get started. So, obviously, I think there's almost everyone must know that yesterday there was an attempt on the life of Donald Trump. He was lucky he didn't suffer any serious injuries, although it was inches away from actually being killed. There was one spectator killed, two in critical condition, and the shooter has also been killed. So it was a very bad day for America yesterday, and we want to talk a little bit about the state of our country and how we're getting to the point where this is not just acceptable, but is sort of being encouraged by political pundits and celebrities and people who are upset with Trump to the point that they want to actually kill him, which is a very, very bad thing. So why don't we first start with, I want to give Joe Biden a shout out because I thought he did a very good job last night in his first initial press release. He's going to be doing another one today. We'll see how he does today. But last night he seemed to be very sincere. And why don't we just watch that clip, Jenna? Let's put that up, and then let's talk about that for a second.
Okay, here it comes.
Thanks for coming, folks.
He's still looking a little stiff.
I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that people, and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. Everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I'm able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do. Okay?
Mr. President, do you think this was an assassination attempt?
I don't know enough. I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried for your own safety? Was the security failing, Mr. President?
Well, I got to tell you, that's good job, Joe. I'm not a Biden fan normally, but I think he did a very presidential job. He was on point. He looked better in this interview than he did at the debate. I mean, he did stumble a couple of times, but hey, I stumble all the time myself, so it's not speaking. It's not easy for a lot of people, and I think Joe did a really good job there. So my hat is off to Joe. Thank you, Mr. President, for being a president and saying the right things. And I actually, a lot of people are going to fault him for not saying it was an assassination attempt when it clearly was, but he did the right thing. He's being measured. This is right after this happened. You want to wait for the facts. You don't want to just spout off things. I think he'll do a better job today in his interview. I think hopefully he will acknowledge that it was an assassination attempt. And we'll get to that in a minute about words, okay? The meaning of words anymore is starting to become an issue for this country. People are being very hyperbolic. They're calling things that are not insurrections, insurrections. They're calling dictatorships. They're calling all kinds of crazy things where words that we thought they meant one thing and we understood them to mean something now have lost their meaning because we can decide words are just relative and it's, perception is reality and people can believe whatever they want to believe. It's not good because we need to have some common definition of words so that we can agree at least on those facts, and then we can decide whether something is an assassination, an insurrection, a crime, an official act. I mean, we're having trouble with the most basic terminology that never seemed to be in dispute, at least throughout my lifetime. But anyway, we'll get back to it again. Joe, President Biden, forget about Joe. I want to be very more formal. I think he deserves it and the respect. So President Biden, I appreciate what you said. I know you're doing everything you can do, and I know you're not a bad man, and therefore you believe it's wrong. And I think that's not political that you're saying it that way. I think that's what most of us believe. Any attempt on any politician, anyone, frankly, but particularly our leaders, because that's a disaster for our democracy. If you want to talk about ruining the democracy, go ahead and start killing your leaders, and you'll see what happens there. So again, President Biden, thank you very much for that. I hope to hear some more good stuff from you today, and I hope we can get the country together to stop this sort of nonsense around threatening to kill political rivals because we don't like them. That's just over the pale. That's not American, okay? And I do want to cover next. I think Jen, can we talk about there's this sort of the mainstream media's coverage, which was actually not very good and frankly not up to the par of what President Biden did, and they need to be called out on that because they can't even deal with something so tragic and obvious as an assassination attempt on Donald Trump accurately. They can't even bring themselves to say the word assassination. They're calling it an incident. He fell down. I mean, let's go look at some of these clips because they're astonishing in their lack of empathy for what happened or any sort of news reporting. So let's throw a few of those up.
Yeah, as I'm getting queued up, I was going to ask you, why can't we call it an assassination? Like, what's the hesitation there? Why? Well, as I was reading articles this morning too, it just seemed like it was so hesitant to label it this thing, and I just don't understand why. Why are we so hesitant to do that?
Well, from a political perspective, it's obvious to me. So whenever something like this happens, and it's only happened, a few times. I mean, I think 81. I forget what year it was when they shot Reagan. Usually, when something like that happens, the country rallies behind our leaders. And I think they're afraid. Trump's already having a huge surge after the left went after Biden for his lack of performance and his cognitive decline. That they're afraid that this is going to give Trump a big boost, and I think it will, frankly, and that's why they're trying to downplay it. And by the way, I think you're going to see over the next few days all kinds of spins. Before we're done with this thing, they're going to blame it on this shooter's going to be somehow a right-wing zealot. I'm pretty sure they'll do everything they can to sort of undermine the notion that there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And that's what this is all about. So why don't we watch a few of these? Because I think this should be obvious to anyone. And frankly, again, the media, they're embarrassing. They need to be embarrassed. They need to be called out on this. I don't like to have to do this, but it's getting ridiculous.
It is a sad, sad day for America. It is hard to find the words to describe the shock and the horror that people are feeling right now, after many of us were witnessing on live television the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. This is a devastating day for America. Right now, people are pouring their hearts out on social media and posting "Pray for Trump." Many of the people I'm speaking with over there are feeling scared about how close this was. Looking at the still images, you can see the bullet that pierced his right ear as he gets up with blood smeared on his face.
Look what happened.
This horrific act has just deepened an already huge divide in the United States of America. But if you were following media outlets like CNN today, well, you would have thought that Donald Trump had a fall. Look at this headline. Secret Service rushed Trump off stage after he falls at rally. Falls. It was an assassination attempt. He's not Joe Biden that doesn't know how to stand up. And that's not a one-off headline. This morning, I was looking at my phone and I was taking screenshots because even though it's CNN, I still couldn't believe it. The next headline I saw, Trump injured in incident at rally. Incident. That's really what they wanted to go with when the man who's been president before and is running again was just shot. Oh, and there's more. Video captures what happened at Trump rally that left him injured. Ooh, wonder what it could be. CNN is using the video as clickbait while refusing to acknowledge what it is that just occurred, and that is an attempt to murder the man who is running for president, something that has not happened since 1981 when there was an assassination attempt on Republican President Ronald Reagan. I scroll further down CNN's website and I get to analysis, and of course there's this headline, Trump is favoured but Biden can still win this election. Well, I really doubt that. But let's leave CNN for now. I have more to say about their coverage in a moment because it actually gets worse. And let's look at some of the other reaction we are seeing today. And remember, America is right now feeling the weight and the heartbreak of what has unfolded today. But Colorado Democrat Stephen Woodrow posted on X, the last thing we need was sympathy for the devil, but here we are. Really classy. You know, comments like that are expected from troll accounts, but politicians, well, it really gives us an insight into how dark and how ugly some of the thinking and some of the attitudes are. And also how much hate there is for Donald Trump. So let's look at what some of the Democrats have said in the past. Have they ever called for political violence?
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
That's it right there. Pull it up.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
It is just disgusting. Now back to CNN, because according to them, despite surviving an assassination attempt, there's no legitimate threat to Donald Trump.
Donald Trump and the people around him perceive themselves to be under threat. And that's all that matters. That is not legitimate. That is wrong.
Oh, and here's more CNN coverage complaining about how Trump reacted seconds after someone tried to kill him.
I do want to say there was one thing that when I watched the tape, I found odd because of all of the heated rhetoric. And that is that after he was hit, former President Trump got up and said, fight, fight, fight. I think what we're hearing from people is that's not the message that we want to be sending right now. We want to tamp it down.
Now, we all know that those comments were going to come at some point. Let's find a way to criticise or even blame Donald Trump when we analyse how he was almost murdered on stage. But those comments came even faster than expected, just hours after he was attacked and while he was still recovering in hospital. There is no question that this is such a scary time for America right now. The people I've been speaking to say that they are scared after what they have witnessed and also what the future holds. But after today, I suspect we are going to see a lot more support for Donald Trump. We're seeing this already. Billionaire Elon Musk posted on X today, I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery. Despite all the hate in the world and even an assassination attempt, Donald Trump is not giving up.
Okay, I think we got enough. I think it's...
Wow.
What did you think, Jen?
I'm like, honestly, not surprised and surprised. I also, My biggest issue is people that really have large platforms, which in America we really idolize celebrities and public figures in that way. And I was really unsettled listening to Madonna saying she has thought about blowing up the White House. I mean, it's just this country gave all of these celebrities such an ability to be able to get as large as they did, right? I mean, different artists come from all over the world to come to America to be really, really worldwide famous. And so to say a comment like that, like you want to blow up the White House, an establishment that is really the representation of America and the United States, I just was shocked. I actually didn't really realize that it was this extreme of rhetoric being spoken. And then imagine, like, one last comment on a celebrity and Hollywood. Those people that are of that high of status, they have die-hard fans. Like, people that will literally, do anything for them in a different way than, like, someone who, sees the president as, like, a celebrity. Like, I don't know. There's something about when you're, like, in Hollywood, you get fans that, like, will worship you. And
yeah,
that's
it's like a cult.
Yes, exactly. It's a different, and to me it's demonic. And my views on God and things. It's just like, it's like we're worshiping things, and then people are telling you, if Madonna says, let me blow up the White House, or I forget, what was that? The actress that we just saw that was holding up, like, the Trump bloody head. I forgot her name.
Yeah. She got almost canceled for that, but then she made her way back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know she almost got canceled for that, but that just, really rubbed me the wrong way, to say the least.
But she should have been. That was a pretty ridiculous, over the top. She tried to blow it off as she's a comic, Yeah. Then, look, this is. I'm glad to hear that you feel that way, Jen, because you're a younger generation, and I'm a boomer, and I got to tell you from my experience, I lived through Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, JFK, and Reagan, and I do not remember anyone, right or left, that was disrespectful or who didn't pull behind the president, or Robert Kennedy was a candidate, and Martin Luther King. White people were just as upset over his assassination as black people were, and the whole country mourned those. And you didn't see this. And by the way, there wasn't a million platforms out there, so every Tom, Dick, and Harry couldn't be out there, spewing their stuff. Hollywood didn't get on TV as much back then. We had only like the 2 or 3 news stations, and they all covered it the same. And it was absolutely favorable. I don't even know how you say favorable. It's a tragic day. It was mourned deeply. The news coverage was pretty good. I mean, people can still talk about the conspiracies around JFK and all that, and that's all good and well. And there's probably lots of some of that stuff. But the people, the average person here, we're not involved with these conspiracies. We didn't do anything. We weren't the CIA, the mafia, whoever did it. We were just sad. We were sad that our leaders were being killed for no good reason by crazy people or politically nut jobs or whoever they were. It was bad, and we all pulled together behind that. And that's what they were afraid of with Trump, is that the country may, pull behind him, which is what we're supposed to do, is when something like this happens. So they're worried about that. They can't even bother to say the word. They can't give him any credit. They can't give him any empathy. And that's why I thought what President Biden did, I hope he sticks to his guns on that. I hope his handlers don't decide to push him to the other side and go crazy, which they might, and he didn't have a lot of time probably to prep yesterday, so they probably didn't have a good enough time to prepare him for what they're going to try to do today. So it'll be very interesting what happens today. We may have to come back and look at that press release and maybe make comments on that if he goes off, the reservation. But I want to get back to this sort of divisiveness and the anger of the people. I had, just so you know, it's shocking to me. I even had a very good friend last night when we were talking about this who was also advocating, 2 centimeters, we could have been done with this guy. And I just looked at my friend and said, I don't get it. I really, what is it that you feel that strongly about it? I mean, it's just, what is it? And no one could articulate what it is. They just hate him so much. And a lot of the hate is based on false facts, without a doubt. Again, I am no fan of Trump, never have been. I know him personally, and I don't like him for other reasons than political reasons. I don't like him as a person. I'm more inclined to support his policies, though, than Biden's, but at the end of the day, I don't like him as a person. And I don't like the way he articulates positions. I don't like the way he talks. It's not very presidential, and I don't like that. It makes us look dumb around the world, and I think it would be helpful if he learned to get a little, like if I was to be the president, I could never be the president. I don't speak that well, but if I did, I'd get some coaching, and I'd get some help, and I'd get a good speechwriter, and I'd get somebody to write real sentences, and I'd try to be better, because part of being the leader of the world, the free world, and also the leader of our country, you have to be a leader. You have to be able to communicate clearly and forcefully, and you have to make people want to follow you. And that takes good communication skills. And frankly, Obama had good skills. A lot of the presidents all had good skills. And you could tell the difference. I never was a big fan of Obama, but I never felt bad when he was speaking. He could hold his own on the stage, and I really respected that. That's what you want from your president. So when he was in, I never complained about him at all. Because he's doing his job, and his policies are going to be the policies that we have to live with. And then if the Republicans get in later on, they can put their own policies in if they can get the votes in Congress, which doesn't always happen. We usually have a split Congress and presidency, which is a good thing. I think that check and balance is very good. I prefer they do nothing while they're in office. The less is more, not the other way around. But anyway, that was pretty bad. And then the other thing I want to get to, Jen, here, which is really something, you and I should talk about this for a minute, is that how do you get away with the things that they said, those either pundits or even, these celebrities saying stuff like that? Because I know when I was growing up, if you said something like that out loud, you were expected to see the Secret Service show up on your door tomorrow and arrest you, because it's against the law to threaten the president. And the fact that people do it like openly now, it's like, open season on attacking the president, not just attacking him on his policies. They're going after him with crazy lawsuits. I've never seen anything like this where they went after one person so much. They're so afraid of this guy that they're even willing to, not they, I don't want to blame the Democrats for shooting him, but still, someone thought it was okay to go ahead and shoot him. And then the other thing, the last point I'm going to make on this, Jen, and I'd like to hear what you think about it, is where the hell are the parents here? Okay? This kid, 20 years old, his father bought him the gun. Yeah, that's what I heard. I think his father bought him the gun. He's 20 years old. And, where are these parents? And where are these parents of the people, like even the older folks, the 40, years old people on TV, how do their parents feel about the crap that they say? I would be completely embarrassed. If Madonna was my daughter, she's not because she's my age, but if she was my daughter, I'd throw her out of the house for that kind of baloney. I don't give a shit how famous she is, and I don't care how much money she has. It's just got to stop. This is a parental failure. And I blame my generation. I'm going to be here tonight. I'm going to start with us. We were so desperate, right? So desperate to give our children a better life that we were, and we were all worried about, our parents are too tough, and there was a lot of, concern around that, and people were saying, you got to be gentle with your kids. They can't handle the kind of pressure. They're going to make them suicidal and whatever. Which, by the way, didn't happen in the early days. That's just a recent phenomenon where kids are so weak and they're so unable to deal with life, and they're looking to blame everybody but themselves for their own lack of success or whatever. That where are the parents? I'm happy. My children are doing well. I don't think they have any of these views. I don't expect them to. By the way, if they did, I'd say something about them. If they were out there on a social media platform or any of this stuff where they were doing things that I felt were inappropriate, I would be doing something about it. I don't care how old they get. I'm not going to stand by and have my children act like fools out there when they know better. Okay, and then the last thing, Jen, I think there's something you can pick up on because I think you're better at this than I am. I was a Catholic, and I grew up very strict Catholic. I sort of fell away from the church a bit. I have my issues. I've had my concerns about, whether God could exist given, the state of affairs. I think everyone goes through those questioning periods. But the values that I carry from my childhood all the way through today, they're the same. I haven't changed. I still believe in the Ten Commandments. I still believe in all the good things about religion. And I'm not afraid to acknowledge some of the bad things that religions have done, and also the wars that are being fought now are largely based on religion, and for most of history have been. So I see the bad things, but I also think without that morality, without that ethics, what do we have to guide us? Okay, and the lack of any moral rules today is so stark. I almost feel like I am living in an atheist country. When you go to Hollywood,
most people are. I'm on the dating apps. There's
Okay.
atheist.
Really?
Almost. Oh my gosh. My mother was like, you need to join like a Jewish Christian dating app, because I was saying everyone has in their profile atheist, and that is like so. Just I can't. We can't go anywhere.
Jen, I didn't know one atheist growing up. I mean, come on.
I grew up in such a religious community. So, I went to Hebrew school, and everyone I grew up in a very predominantly Jewish community. So I hear you.
No, but everybody, when I grew up, everybody was a part of a religion. Okay? You were Jewish, you were Catholic, you were Christian, you were Baptist, you were whatever you were. Everyone had a church. I did not know anyone who didn't grow up in some religious structure.
Yeah.
And when I lived in the South, I was in the military. I was in Texas. Texas was very, very religious. We had 144 churches. I was in Abilene, Texas, at Dyess Air Force Base. 100,000 people, 144 churches. There was a church in every corner. And by the way, of all persuasions, there was every religion was represented in my city. So, the whole town was very religious. Matter of fact, it was a dry town for a long time. You couldn't even buy alcohol there.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, Texas was very, very religious.
Yeah.
A lot of the South is. And by the way, to tell you the truth, I don't know what people think about, these religious right, not just. They were the nicest, sweetest, humble, generous. I mean, if you were in my town in Abilene, Texas, if you needed something, there was 10 churches vying to help you out. Okay, there was no homelessness. Believe it or not, 144,000 people, no chance. No one would be let. Churches would come to your house every weekend. I'd have people coming up to my house trying to see if I wanted to join their church or the other church. They were in the neighborhood, walking the neighborhoods, and policing each other. There was going to be free food and clothing, housing. There was all kinds of all kinds of support systems. None of it was the government. In Texas, none of it. There was no need for any government intervention at all, because the churches took care of their community. And if you wanted to be taken care of or get help, there was 144 churches that would help you. There was no way impossible that you could be homeless in Abilene, Texas while I was there. Not a chance. Or go without food or clothing or whatever. If you were poor, people would give you furniture. It was really the way things should be. And I'm from Connecticut. I'm from New York. I mean, I'm certainly a Yankee at heart. But I did like the fact that people in the South and the more religious people were genuine. Okay, and they were very, very much all about helping, and that's good. And so those values, I think, got to come back somehow. I've come 100%, 180 degrees full circle on this. I see a lack of that, and I think, Jen, we got to do something about it, because and if you look at the Hollywood, you look at the music industry.
It's turned so demonic. I was watching a video a couple of videos.
Right. Aren't they like they're wearing devil costumes?
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
exactly.
Even Taylor Swift, the sweetest girl in the world, right? What is with her?
Well, I saw a conspiracy theory video about.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know if I would call it a conspiracy theory video, but where he's a pro boxer, and I'm forgetting his name, but he was describing how he saw and would be a part of these groups that would go into the woods, and they would be sacrificing babies to the devil so that they could receive power and fame. And I mean, I've heard this from a few. Tila Tequila is another person I heard do this video. Yeah. I've heard now a few like celebrities that are now not so in the mainstream, but they were famous, have spoken on this. I've watched other videos. It's just, I mean, I think there is something truly demonic again to a specific like worshiping thing. And one thing you said before that I had so many thoughts when you were speaking, but the one thing I can comment very clearly on is I think a lot of people use that argument of how is there God when there's so much bad in the world. God from the beginning warned us that there is bad, there is good and evil, there is contrast. Just because there is evil does not mean that the evil is God, but that is the nature and the human nature of existence. That is also the nature of how things work. There has to be duality. So why do we praise God when there's something good and then we condemn him when something bad happens, as if every single action is his doing? It's not. There is a spiritual warfare that is happening, and I'm a firm believer in this. I'm a godly woman, so I'm not shy to say this. I know some people, may think I'm crazy, and that's totally fine. But just like there is good, there is evil. So God can only also control so much. That is why he gave us free will. We all have free will. Adam and Eve, they were told, do not eat the apple. But because God gave them free will, they did. They were tempted. By who? The devil. If we're saying that there is God, that means there can be nothing bad. No, that's actually not what the Bible says at all. It's the opposite. He warns of do not fall victim to the flesh. That's the first thing that I think when I hear someone say that same comment, I'm like, God never said there was only good. That was something that was not spoken on. What I think is what we're saying is how do we define morality, which has been, a philosophical argument for years, or a philosophical question that's been happening. Aristotle and Socrates, have been asking this question, like, what is good and bad? But how can we as a human just be the ones that define that? That makes no sense to me. I'm not all-knowing, and I know that. And I think we all as humanity can say there is something greater than us. I don't really know if even an atheist, I'm not sure if even an atheist is like, no, there's nothing greater than us. I mean, I don't know. I haven't really spoken to that many, so that's an assumption. But I think we all know that there is something larger than us. And that peace, that mental health piece where you're like, something's missing from my life and I'm trying to fix it with whatever it is, drug, alcohol, making a lot of money, jobs, whatever you want to fill it. That missing piece is God. We all have a God-shaped hole in our heart. And the only thing that's going to fill it, because I have tried everything, John. I mean, I've done everything. I did the whole spirituality, like tarot, meditating. I've done therapy. I've done it all. Been successful in like the dream job. Yeah, I was a professional dancer, what I wanted to do my whole life. There was still something missing. And I never found full peace and solace until I really gave my life to God. And I'm grateful that I had parents and my uncle, who is a rabbi, that was able to, from a young age, instill religion in me. So I was able to, know to come back to this. But it does scare me that there's families and children that are growing up actually without any teachings of God or religion at all.
I totally agree with that. And I know I live my life, according to God's will. I know I do. Even though I, at times, question God, I didn't change how I lived, okay? I always believed in the moral code. I always believed in the greater good. I always believed that it was each of us responsibility to do good, to help others. And, I have a little weird, I don't know if it's weird, but, I have this view about concentric circles. I've always lived my life that way. You start off, you fix yourself, you fix your family, you fix your friends, you fix, not fix, but you work on helping, each of these circles, starting with you, your family, your friends, your community. And the stronger you are, the better you are, the larger the ripples can be in your concentric circles, and you can reach out to more and more people. And I don't see people living their life that way. I think they're stopping at themselves. They're not creating any ripples. And then the other thing is I think people are in search for meaning, a lot of it. I read this book, Logotherapy by Viktor Frankl. That was a game changer for me. If you haven't read that, you ought to read it. It's a very short read. He was in the concentration camps, and he wrote a book. So I don't even want to tell you how he kept the book, because they don't let you keep anything in there. How he wrote this book on a little tiny pieces of paper and where he had to hide it to keep from from getting found out. And he wrote about the meaning. He was a philosopher, a very, very bright guy. Viktor Frankl, look him up. He's called logotherapy, and it was search of meaning. And he basically said people that survived those camps survived because of their faith. They had a meaning in life. They found meaning, even in a concentration camp, where all meaning was stripped from them, right? If you're ever going to give up on God, that's when you're going to give up, right? You're going to get, you're in there, you're going to get burned in a furnace, and you know it. And in the meantime, you're starved to death, right? You know what's happening. Every day you're watching people go and get killed. And why do you even survive? And people did. And he wrote a very good book on it. Like, it changed me because I realized, you know what? There is got to be a higher purpose. Why are we here? Why are we here? Yep. So that book was a game changer for me. I encourage everybody to read it. It's a very short read. You can read it in a couple hours, and it'll be a game changer for you as well. But the next thing I want to get to is I think parents got to step up their duty again. Okay, now I know it's not favorable, it's not vogue, it's not cute to go to church.
Right.
But I got to tell you that
it's not a trend.
It's
anymore.
not a trend, right? And everyone, like I said, everyone went to church. Sunday was church day. Okay, the whole country. Okay, and then after that, it was activities around church. People used to get dressed up. Every Sunday, you're in your Sunday best. That used to be a thing. There's no such thing as Sunday best anymore. Everyone wants to go to brunch now and drink champagne and dance on the tables rather than go out to be with the family. Because it was Sunday church and then family meal, right? So it's not just the church. It was a way of keeping your community and your family together. And we never missed Sunday. Sunday was spaghetti and meatballs. It was the only day we had meat in my house because we didn't have any money. My father used to make the meatballs and the sauce, and at least ground beef was still relatively cheap. We could never get it. We never, Jen, I never had a steak in my entire life until I think I went in the military, and even that steak wasn't that good because I think they gave us rabbit and called it steak in Texas. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
They actually had rabbit on the menu down there. I mean, that was, rabbits were like all over the place. Jackrabbits, they're big. I don't know if you ever seen them. They have these big ears. Like,
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that was big in Texas. They had rabbit, so we used to have rabbit, a lot of rabbit. So we're not missing spaghetti and meatballs on Sunday. And then, of course, if there was football, we'd watch football. It was a community thing, and it was a family thing, and it does. I think that's got to come back. I think you got to keep your kids closer to you. You got to get them off of the social media. You got to get them to sit around the table. And that's how we shared our stories. And that's how the history, like we didn't have pictures, okay, Jen? So there's no picture history of my family. Our family is oral history. We if you want to know about my family, you got to talk to me or my siblings because all of our stories are there. And one of the things I'm going to try to do before I die is to get together with my family and put them on film so that their kids can find out about them because I don't even think their kids know about their parents, the things that I know about them. And they're all humble, so they're not going to tell their kids all the great things they did. None of my family ever brags about anything, okay? It's the last thing you would do in my family. Although every single one of my siblings is amazing what they have accomplished from zero to where they are today. And they never brag about it. They just go about their lives. They did a great job raising their children, and their children don't know their history. So I'm going to make it a duty of mine, they don't know my parents' history because it's going to die with me, right? It's going to die with me because we don't have a pictorial record. We don't have a Instagram account where you can go back and look at 50,000 pictures over the last 20 years. We don't have any of that. We don't have a platform. We don't have all that stuff where people spout all their stuff. So I think it's important for people to keep their family history alive, pass it along to their children and grandchildren, and try to bring back some amount of morality. I think you got to bring God back into the world. I think you got to stop this stuff. And I know people are searching, though. Jen, like you said, you went through all those, right?
Yeah.
Everyone I know under 40 or under 50 probably has gone through this spiritual journey, right? Looking
Everyone's
for.
On the
They're
search.
doing ayahuasca. They're gonna do mushrooms. They're going Burning Man. They're
and to that, people think that sounds normal, but then when you find God, and I were to say God now, which is what I do, and I live my life by God, I sound crazy.
Yeah.
So it's so I don't even get, because I drank the juice. My brother likes to say you drank the juice, and I never did a trip like that, but or a psychedelic. However, I almost did, and it's crazy to think that it's normal. It's so normalized to do mushrooms or to do ayahuasca, but you seem abnormal to worship God. It's so flipped.
Oh, totally flip. I mean, for me, it's like I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm not against. Look, I want people to find their meaning, okay? And if it ends up coming through that door, I don't really care, right?
Sure.
I want them to. I may not agree with it, but again, I'm not here to say you got to go my way or your way, but I want you to find a way.
And definitely being a good person. I mean, I think it goes back to this. All I think about what's happening with Trump right now too, and what I'm saying in my mind is like, to me, this is like the epitome of bullying. Like you're actually kicking someone while they're down. Like how evil is it that we're commenting whatever you don't like about this man or do like about him, that we're like commenting still negatively on him, someone that just got attacked. And I think that that's actually really evil. And I think that's just it just shows a lot. It just shows a lot about where we are as a society.
And you know, wouldn't you think that there would at least be a 24-hour pause
Right?
on the attack, right?
Right.
Out of respect, you know. I mean, you should see the social media stuff. It's like off the chart. People are like, "Oh, we should have killed him." I mean,
oh my God.
There's millions and millions. There's got to be millions of comments out there already that you know. And by the way, Jen, we'll get
we'll
get attacked like crazy over our
it's
point of
okay.
view here. No, I'm fine. But just saying, but how tragic is that? What are we saying here? That's a problem.
Well, it makes me actually want to defend. I want to defend anyone that's getting beat up and down. And I know we can all say we know Trump, but like I've never sat in a room alone with him. I don't actually know him. I know the things he says. I know the things he does. I know like some things he stands by. But is that always how I can judge someone's character? I mean, maybe that's the argument. But I don't know if I can really say I don't like Trump as a person. I don't know him as a person. I know him as the professional he projects himself as. And so that's where I get so like, why is there so much hate towards him as a person? Unless you're like immediately in his circle, how can you say you know this man?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Or tell me, like, do you think...
I agree with you because I actually do know him. Okay, because I'm in New York. I've been here.
Sure. And you're in the successful circles. Yeah.
I've been around his deals and the like, and I know what he's done. I've been at events with him, and he was never he was not really a favorite person in New York in the business world. He was in real estate development.
Why? Is it because he's mean or because he's smart? Or like, do you think it's jealousy or do you think it's? And I'm asking honestly.
No. I'm going to tell you straight up. I'm going to get my personal opinion. I think if you talk to any real professionals in New York that knew Trump over the years, like I do, and most of them will say the same thing. One, you can tell he never was able to get really good lawyers to represent him. Why do you think that's the case?
Because
they don't want to be associated with him.
Oh.
Right? You don't want to be tainted by this guy because he is an impossible client. Right? He's going to do what he wants to do. He's a bully. Okay, I'm just going to tell you what he's a bully. Okay, he's always been a bully, and you know me, Jen. I do not like bullies.
Yeah.
My job, since I was 5 years old and I had my first fight in kindergarten, protecting a kid from a bully. I've taken that as my mission in life is to deal with bullies. Okay, to take care of people who don't have the ability to deal with bullies.
Yeah.
And he was a bully because he had money. His father, Trump didn't create his empire. His father did. Okay, so he didn't earn any of that stuff. And he walked around as a bully. He was one of those spoiled kids from a very early age, okay? And he was not a fan in New York. He used to have these fake parties and things. He did everything he could to become famous, okay? He was Kardashians before Kardashians, okay? And it took him a lot longer because there wasn't social media. If there was social media back then, Trump would have been bigger even earlier. And I've always said this, the crazy thing about when Trump got elected, there was more video on that guy than any president in history. So if you wanted to really learn about the guy, just go look at the stuff. And people don't. They didn't bother taking time. They're literally, this guy's been trying to be on TV forever. And then he made his big hit with his show, okay? That show, Apprentice, put him on the map, right? So if it wasn't for Apprentice, he would not be president today. That show put him on the map when reality TV became a thing, right? Kardashians became a thing. Trump became a thing. He became famous, being a jerk. Like, you're fired. I mean, come on, Think about the whole premise of that show, right?
It was branded well.
But think of the premise, though.
No, I know.
He'd get like ordinary people or even celebrities that jump through hoops for him, where he criticized the crap out of him, right? Him and his daughter. I mean, that was even more embarrassing that she was out there doing the same thing as if she had any bona fides, right? She's third generation of wealth, and out there trying to tell the average Joe how to be successful. And then firing them, and he brought. Remember Omarosa? You remember that? I don't know if you.
No.
Oh man, you gotta go.
I'm so bad with names.
You got to go back. There was so many characters on that show that were hilarious.
Oh, I didn't really watch the actual show.
Oh my God, it was a hilarious show. I couldn't help watching because it actually was so comedic that I couldn't help it, and I was watching it more out of just the fun of watching Trump be a jerk. So when he ran for president the first time, no one expected him to win anything, because we assumed everyone would immediately see he was not a serious candidate versus the other people who had spent their careers building up a resume, right, to run for president, because that's what you got to do. I mean, you think, right? You should have a resume to run for president. Yeah. You should have been tested. You should have gone through, maybe you were a governor or you're in the Senate or something like that. You had to do something besides just show up off a TV show, right? Yeah. And become the president. So I was very skeptical. So, and to say, oh, he's a businessman. Businessmen are going to make good presidents. Maybe. I'm not suggesting that it isn't. I mean, it's helpful to have a business background to solve problems, to know how to organize things, to know about taxes and economic growth. So I think having business background is very helpful. Very helpful. But I don't think it's the only reason to have a guy in there. He runs the country like a business. Well, good luck doing that. It's a bureaucry. Yeah, it's not a business. You got to have a whole nother skill set to run the government, because the government is not like a business. I wish it was, but it's not. In any event, but he did a couple of good things. People bitch about the tax code. I tell you, the tax thing he did, that was disastrous for guys like me. The really ultra rich, they got a benefit, and people at the lower end got a benefit, but people in the middle, we got crushed. Right? How much taxes went way up. Right. So, because you got rid of the state and local tax deductions, like limited to $10,000, which is not even, if you live in New York, your taxes are crazy. So you're basically paying, I'm paying almost 62% rate on my taxes, Jen, which I think is crazy. People don't get it, man. No, 62%. Yeah. I work for the government. I don't work for anybody else. So anyway, the whole Trump thing is embarrassing. I want to go back to say one more thing about the people I met in sort of the religion thing, because I think it's more important than ever, Jen. We've been talking about this. Yeah, we have. And I'm really starting to come around. And at first I was afraid, because I think if you take a position on religion, people just automatically assume that you're an idiot and you can't be taken serious. No, seriously, you can't be taken serious, right? When I was in Texas, I mean, first of all, in my Catholic upbringing, everybody in Derby, when I grew up, everybody was a Catholic. You were either Polish Catholic, you were Italian Catholic, and we had a very small group of Jewish people. But they actually were not from our city, but they happened to have this, I don't know how. There was a synagogue in my city right next door to the synagogue was right next door to the Catholic school. And we had a fence there. And so we could talk to the kids, but they all came from another town. I don't know why. Again, I don't know why it was in Derby, but they had it there. Maybe the property was cheap. Who knows? Yeah. But so we got to meet all the other Jewish kids, and at first, like typical people, there was concern. They're different than us, right? And people wanted to breed that sort of anti-Semitic. We didn't even know what the hell that word meant. We just knew that the Jews had been persecuted. We knew about the Holocaust. And we knew they were different than us. So here's a great story. You're going to love this. So what the priest in my school did and the rabbi of the synagogue, they decided, we can fix that. They took us to the synagogue, right? And we went there and watched their services. And and then they came to the church next door and they watched our services. And guess what? We became friends. Yeah. And that was that. And then we played in the schoolyard. And then we did think twice ever again, from that rest of my life, I never thought twice about being anti-Jewish in any way, shape, or form, because I went to they welcomed us in. Yeah. They treated us like brethren. Mm-hmm. And then as I found out over the years, and this is where I really Italians and Jews are very close because we have.
I am that an Italian Jew.
But you know what I'm saying? Our cultures are very, very similar.
We are, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Family, values. Work hard, take care of each other. To me, you can't tell the difference.
Yep.
We just don't share the same 2 books of the Bible.
Exactly. The Jesus thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't I don't make that a big deal for me. Jesus is actually was big in the Catholic Church, but not as big as it is in the Baptist Church. That's really it's really much. I realized that when I went to Texas how they were much more. They didn't talk about God as much as they talk about Jesus, whereas we did talk more about God. In the Catholic Church, and but anyway, but the other last thing I want to say about that is I remember how wonderfully nice people were to me in Texas when I came from the north, and the 2 things struck out. One is I didn't realize how much I used to swear, because you come from every other word, the F word is like an adjective, a verb, a noun. You don't even. It's sort of like your right. You fill it in. I didn't even know it. It just becomes part of. I didn't even know it, and then I was in Texas, and like everyone's looking at me like you got a 3rd head. I'm saying like, okay, what's going on here? And I'm going to tell you the story. It's kind of funny, and I finally asked a friend of mine. He says like, why does everybody look at me like that? He goes, John, you swear a lot. I go, get the fuck out of here. That was my response. Get the fuck out of here. I don't swear. I didn't even know it, right? So it took me, I had to start consciously thinking about that.
Yeah.
And it took me about a year. It really took me that long to get it out of my vocabulary. And I did. So because I was in Texas for 8 years, when I finally came back to New York, unfortunately, it took only about a month for me to get right back into it.
Yeah.
And it was really bad because I'd actually got it out of my my repertoire, and even now I try to do better, but I'm not because I'm up here and it's just sort of normal. But they never swear. They never swear down there. They're very, very polite. And the last thing to say, this is kind of funny. People told me, John, you must be nuts. In Texas, in a lot of the places, I don't know if it's in the big cities or not, but Abilene's out in West Texas, kind of country. There's 150 miles, Jen, between one town and the next.
Okay.
Okay. There's little farms and little things, but I mean, from a decent sized town, you got to drive 150 miles. Mm. And most people drive. I live 30 miles outside of the base. I had to drive 30 miles to go home every night. Yeah, and it was no big deal. Everyone did. Right. I lived on a farm out there in a little tiny little place I rented from some guy. But when you drive by someone in Texas, they all wave.
Oh,
they wave to
beautiful.
You. Highway, streets, whatever, hi neighbor, they wave to you. And at first I'm saying, this is crazy, right? And next thing you know, it's not bad, right? Instead of people yelling at you like in New York, get out of my way, get out of my way. People in Texas, they're waving, hi neighbor, hi neighbor. And it comes from the old days when you might not see a person, right? You're driving on that road, sometimes another person on that road. So when you see your neighbor, you acknowledge your neighbor, period. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing, Jen, because that's how you keep a community. Can you imagine people in New York saying hi to each other as they're walking by each other? They don't even say hi when they're in the elevator. You get 20 people in the elevator.
I know, it's so awkward.
People looking at their shoes, looking at their phone, right?
I'm the one that starts talking and then no one replies back. It's so awkward.
You're like face to face with somebody. And you don't even acknowledge that you look away, you look down. I
think it's human decency. And I think, again, this is the example of the shooting, what shows us. It's not, we don't even know what human decency is. Like, it's just how to respect someone.
We don't look at each other as humans.
No, we don't even know. I don't even know. Yeah, it's wild. There's such a disconnect.
The value of life, right?
Yep.
I mean, the value of life. And, and I was in the military and, I've been around some bad stuff. Really bad stuff. I've had people killed right next to me and
crazy.
So I've seen bad things in my life, and I never had desire to kill someone, even though I have the capacity,
right.
And I would to protect my family, to protect you, to protect this country. I have no issue with it. Not that I would be happy about it. I would suffer for my entire life. I mean, a life is a life, even if it's an enemy combatant, even if it's someone who's trying to do harm to you or someone else. In the moment, I might have that, normal reaction, which is to just protect, and your basic instincts will take over. But I would regret it later.
Yeah.
And I know all my Navy SEAL and my Special Forces guys who I work with a lot. You know how I wear my Garden Revival shirt because I love these guys and I support them every time I can. They suffer immensely, from the things that they've had to do in protection of our country. They're not out there shooting people for sport, okay? And they suffer that. And a lot of them, if you'll probably see, this is tie back to our thing here. I've noticed a lot of them have gone and found God as a way to deal with this now, and it's a great thing. Almost all of my friends are very religious now. They may not have been in the past, but they are now. They found God, and that's keeping them from suicide, because the suicide rate among the military, and particularly Special Forces guys, is off the chart, and police officers and first responders. It's crazy. They talk about, the number of suicides among kids or transgender. They're not even on the same level of what you're going to see in the military community, and yet we don't have any advocates out there, right, for those guys who not through their own fault, did things that they had to do for us, and now paying the ultimate price for it, because it's a conflict of conscience, and it is what it is, and it's terrifying. So I think we do need to maybe bring this back, and maybe people are going to criticize me even more. Now I'm a boomer, and now I'm a Christian, and whatever. But I'd rather be in a world that people respect that and have God in their life, and that they treat people with the right respect, and they're not here to kill each other. And you can reasonably agree to disagree without hating each other. I really don't, like you said, the 70s were bad, Jen. I told you about this. We had a very similar divide, and we've been dealing with this sort of Marxist, socialist versus capitalism debate forever, okay? And it's always strange to me that we're still having it, but people don't really understand it, and they haven't seen the horror that socialism and Marxism and communism has done, and the number of people it's killed. If you want to be saved, that is not the route. And I'm not saying capitalism's for everyone. I get it. It's challenging because guess what? Some people are going to do better than others, and that's a very troubling thing today. Everybody wants to be the same. Well, it's just not going to happen because we're not the same. We're all different. We all have different skill sets. We all have different attributes. We all have different levels of willingness to do things to get better. You can't keep blaming everybody else. And at the end of the day, that envy, Jen, leads you to this sort of situation where we're all going to be the same. Well, guess what? We can all be the same, but it's going to be at the lowest common denominator. That's the only way, okay? And if that's what people want, they're going to get it. But the problem is everyone has to contribute then. And we all know human nature says that there will be free riders. There will be people who won't do their part. And therefore, you're going to have people still complaining. And you're still going to have people taking advantage of weaker people. And so at least capitalism recognizes that, right? We recognize the human nature, and we try to create a system where everyone can at least play on somewhat of a fair level playing field. But that's not true because, we have a very much of a socialist capitalist system. People don't get it. I mean, our government is so big. That's socialism, okay? That's we're not capitalist. If we redistribute like crazy, we redistribute for as much as any country through our tax system and through our social programs. So we're not even close to being a full-on capitalist, because if that's the case, we wouldn't have the government like that. So no, we're well away from that. And it's because people care. We want an efficient economic system so people could do better, so people could start with less and get more. That's what capitalism did for me, and it's done for many, many generations, and it'll do it for people of this generation if they just give it a shot. But it does require effort, and it requires responsibility. It requires people to be honest about themselves and the world around them, and stop taking the words and changing the meanings to the point where there are no words that mean anything. We can't have a conversation, Jen, because we're not even agreeing on the definition of what we're having a conversation about. It's crazy. And so then how can we come up with a resolution for that? But anyway, and to think that, like, for example, people of my generation, the boomers, we set out to go ahead and hurt you guys, Jen. I mean, come on, you know better than that. You know, there's no way I have that I
No,
could
I think
ever.
the opposite. I think like what you said earlier, you're all trying to actually change the childhoods or experiences you all had to go through, which were, you know, we are in just such a privileged time, at least in America, of being able to really accomplish almost anything you set out to. It's been that way in history, right? Like everyone wants the American dream, but now even more than ever, you can really accomplish things that you want. And I think it was not so easy for your generation. And then those of you that did become very successful, yeah, you wanted to change and pass along the information and the success. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's amazing, right? Like when I have a family, I want to do the same thing. I want them to have what I lacked, right? So that's me trying to make a difference and an effort and hopefully changing, like you mentioned earlier, the ripple effect. So of course not. There was nothing. I think that's what's difficult. I don't truly believe, well, unless you're really lost, I do believe, but people aren't, you know, necessarily setting up and waking up like, how can I ruin my life today? How can I, you know, ruin my kid's life? I'm saying the people, you know, the good people. Of course, there's people that are mentally lost and spiritually lost, and that's a different story. So I know I don't believe at all that you or specifically also my parents ever tried to do any harm.
Yeah, and someday maybe we'll come back and we'll go back to the First Amendment. This whole notion of separation of church and state, which was not. That's not the Constitution says. That was a Jefferson thing that came years after the Constitution. It wasn't that. You're not supposed to establish religion, and you can't impair the free exercise of religion. And there was no religion was in everything. We were a country born on the fact of religious freedom, right? That was how we started.
I would argue the opposite is also doing that, saying that we're not going to talk about religion is also almost establishing another religion.
Yeah, atheism.
Right? Like, I'm like, that's actually, I don't know. I feel like that's the same thing in a way.
It is. And look, religion was part of everything. It's in all of our framers, all the documents. It was in school. And it needs to be. I mean, people do need to learn ethics and morality and not being taught, you know, Marxist doctrine and this utopian notion that somehow it's a victimhood and that's the only way to get there. It's not good. It's not. By the way, I could care less if I didn't care about my children and my grandchildren and you and your generation, Jen. If I didn't care, I wouldn't give a damn about this. Why?
Exactly.
I'm fine. Okay, I'll live my moral code. I'll live my system. And you guys will have to figure it out. And I could just do that, but I'm not inclined to do that because I don't think it's fair. I think, you know, part of the reason why you're in the situation you're in is because I think as parents, we probably, with all the best intentions, did a lot to prevent you from seeing the realities of what it takes to live and bring up a family. And then I think the other thing is, and again, I'm not against people that don't want to have children. I just surprised at the number of younger people who don't.
We're gonna have to do a whole episode on that.
I don't understand it because
we know that's a long combo.
No, because I mean, I think as humans, that your main mission in life is procreation. I think, and I mean, I never once thought for a second, growing up, that I wasn't going to have a family, because like when I saw what my parents did for me, and then I was going to want to do that and better for my children, and they're going to for their children. It never even occurred to me that I wouldn't have a family.
Well, there's a big influencer I follow. I will maybe not mention their name. The two of them, the husband and wife, are very successful. They own a really big nutrition company, and they're in their 40s. And the woman, the wife, often talks about why she doesn't have kids. And I'm going to tell you the answer is always, it's the most selfish thing. She's like, because I want to be able to do whatever I want. And then she posted a clip. This was a couple days ago. She posted a clip of Chelsea Handler
I saw that with
skiing down a mountain, like within a bikini or something, drinking at the same time. I'm not really sure. I'll pull it up.
That's your shtick. Yeah, she loves to drink.
And the woman was like, she reposted it like, exactly. I always get asked, like, oh, is it because my marriage is failing? Like, is that why I don't have kids? She's like, no, I just want to be able to do whatever I want when I want. Isn't there a time when to me, when I feel the best is when I'm in service. Yes, like you said earlier, I have to figure out myself. I have to go through that. I think that's like, as you grow up, that's like your child, then okay, like your 20s, you're figuring yourself out, or whatever, teens. And then there's a time like I want to give back, right? All that I learned. And again, even this act of trying to, I guess I can't say assassinate the president, but this violent act, it's selfish. It's so selfish. And that is, again, the issue. We can relate it to everything we just talked about. Being in an elevator, not speaking to someone else. Like, I mean, just acknowledging my presence. Like, or it's all just to gain. How can I get further? Just me. And that is so empty. That is so empty. Why are the people then that do that the most successful people? Or I'm not going to group everyone together, but why have we seen very successful people, millionaires, whatever, the best careers, be the most miserable? And I'm sure you know some, because you're, again, super successful. You're in circles with people that have a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
Are they all really that happy? No, because it's not fulfilling ever to just live for yourself.
Well, when they get that kind of money, what happens is they become, and maybe they need to be narcissists to begin with, to get to that level of wealth. I don't know. I think there's something to say for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a skill. It's also, I'm not undermining it, because it's a skill and it's a talent, and I would love to have it too. But yeah, I think there's something.
Yeah, and look, then they get on the circuit. There's all the billionaire circuit where every month you got to be in a certain country for the the events and all that. And they do that, right? They get the boats, the planes, the cars, and all that stuff. They all do the same thing. I mean, it's almost identical. Okay, and you can see them. And particularly for the men who are the first time they become wealthy, they almost always get divorced. They almost always get brand new, younger wives. And it's look, Bezos, Gates. I mean, you can go on and on and on. It's happened. All these guys eventually, once they get to that point, they have the ability to do anything, Jen. And once you have the ability to do anything, there's no moral code at that point, right? You're
Lots
not
of temptation.
You're above that mission that you started with, and you're now you're just going to self-gratify, and that's what they're going to do. Although I do know billionaires that do it the other way. They're big on charities. They're big on outdoor activities. They're big on living a good life and share. So I don't want to put them all in the same category.
No,
they're not.
Yes.
And I just want to tell you one other anecdote, and we probably should wrap up on this.
Yeah, we definitely
because we want to come back and do this, but I want to tell you a little anecdote about families. And I know this is not the topic we started with, but we got off the track. Who cares? If people don't want to watch it, they can don't have to watch it. But so I don't know if I told you this, but when I was married before my wife passed, she couldn't have kids. So I wasn't devastated by it because I had a huge family. I had nieces and nephews, so I kind of had kids. Like my brother's son.
You found out after you married her?
Yeah. And typically, how would you know, right?
Right. That's true.
And by the way, she'd already, she'd had a child from a previous teenage pregnancy, so she had a child. So I assumed that she could have children, but at the end of the day, she couldn't have children. So that's what, as you know. So I adopted my son. So my son's adopted from Guatemala. Before we adopted him, I tried to become a foster parent. And I was going to want to be a foster parent first and then adopt some kids. And I wanted to adopt like a whole group of them. I figured I wanted, because I heard about these, families of kids who were all out there. And I knew it was tough to, I heard it was really tough for groups of siblings to get adopted together. And in my mind, coming from a family of 10, the notion that we would be split up amongst a bunch of families was terrifying to me.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine being separated from my siblings. So I went to the foster care. It was in New York City. And I remember going down there. We had to fill out all these papers and everything. And I thought it would be a breeze, right? We had, I was very, I was making pretty good money. I was a partner at the time. I thought this is not going to be hard for me to get a foster care appointment. So you had to go to these classes. And we were the only white couple. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's great. But I'm just going to tell you the facts. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Do whatever that you want with the facts. Yeah. We were the only white couple in there. All the rest of the people in there were single mothers on welfare, okay? And this was their side work job. So they would get paid to take in foster kids. And some of these mothers were taking in 3 and 4 and 5 in like really bad living situations because they would make money. And they didn't care about these kids. So when we were in those meetings, you got the daggers Jen, that I was getting, the vibe, like, what are you...
From the other woman?
Oh, my God, what are you white people doing getting in our game? And like, oh, my God, it was... I felt horrible being there. And not only that, but I wanted to adopt the children, not just be the foster parents. None of those other parents were going to... They were not going to adopt them. It was a job. They made money by just putting another kid in the house. Okay? And how was that helping these kids?
No, that I'm like trying not to cry because it's
so that experience for me told me that, okay, we got a really fucked up broken system here, right? You got people who want to go and adopt kids in America. You can't even do that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because they're in this foster system. And by the way, the government doesn't want to terminate parental rights. In order to get adopted, they got to terminate. And they don't do it. No matter how bad the parents are, they could be in jail. They could have abandoned these kids. Because it's a legal process that people fight it.
But like, you're in the law. Why would that be something that...
Because terminating a right of a parental right is a very, very high burden.
If they deserve that, I don't...
They could, but they just don't. Like, look what we do. We will let undocumented workers in. Sure. It's political.
All right.
There's an industry, Jen, around this. It's a freaking money-making industry for people to take these kids in and get paid for it. And if you're the government side of the house, they don't give a damn at all. These government... I don't care. I don't care if I piss off government workers because they don't care. Right? It's just a job. All these cases are just...
Probably over. I mean,
yeah, they're over. Of course they're overburdened.
Whatever that case, I forget. Gabriel, that child, there was a documentary on him, and it was like, the social workers had 80 or 100 kids, and so he got overlooked, but he was being severely abused, and he was killed by his parents.
But we spend a ton of money on that infrastructure. You realize how many employees we have in this system? That's why I get crazy over these social programs, because they're a waste. We don't put the money to the people. It gets sucked up in the bureaucracy and the number of jobs that people are not giving up. And I'll give you one more story on this, and then we got to go.
Yeah, okay.
Because when I was at Cornell, I worked at this thing called the Government Benefits Clinic, okay? It was a class and a clinic, and you took on a caseload. And there was a guy up there who wrote, a Cornell professor who wrote a book. It wasn't even a book. It was like it was like on a computer. It was like a loose leaf book, okay? Where he kept track of all of the laws, the government benefit laws, and in New York.
Yeah.
And you would not believe how complicated, right? How complex, how unbelievably crazy all these laws are. And there isn't really any place where you can go look them up. If it wasn't for this guy writing this book, if you wanted to practice in the area of government benefits, you would not know what to do. You wouldn't figure out all this stuff. So this guy was such a wonderful guy. Did it all on his own. The book, you didn't pay for it. It was available for free if anybody wanted to do it. He ran the clinic up there, and we had a full caseload. So on top of my classes and the writing, this was a very, very big, it was 6 credits. So it was like the equivalent of 2 classes. We went for a whole year, and I had a caseload, so I was taking on clients, and we were going to the government agencies to try to get benefits for people. And this is where I really learned how bad the government benefit system is. And if people want to know about it, I'm happy to explain it in detail. Okay, so first of all, Social Security. 30 million people are on, it was 30 million, maybe even more than that. So 10% of our population is on Social Security. Social Security you can only get if you're deemed to be 100% disabled. Do you think 10% of the country is 100% disabled?
No.
Of course not. Okay, so that rule has been abused and whatever. So I had a case, and this is what will tell you how fucked up this system is.
Okay.
The kid was 20 years old, and he was a drug dealer. He had a girlfriend and he had 3 kids with the girlfriend. So she was on welfare, and she was getting food stamps, and she was getting HUD housing. I don't know if you know anything about HUD housing, but these it's rental vouchers. So instead of living in, they went away from the first, which was the worst thing ever, where they put these projects up.
Yeah.
By the way, my town, right next to my town, had one of the earliest projects ever. And I also worked in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which had a place called Father Panic Village, which was like worse than all of the projects in the rest of the country. The murder rate was crazy there. That's a whole nother story. Okay, but these projects were horrible. So then they went to this Section 8 where they basically give you vouchers, and you go Therefore, you're supposed to be able to rent a house, and you can get a better house because you're paying for it. But of course, that all devolved into sort of a slumlords, right? Taking these Section 8 people, and they wouldn't take care of the housing. So it wasn't really that much better, but at least you were not in a project, right? So she was getting Section 8, food stamps, all this stuff. And then he went and tried to get Social Security, because then you can get Social Security, SDI. It's a whole lot of money if you can get all these programs. So, but he had to be disabled. And what do you think his disability was?
Like a physical injury, or
Yeah. What do you think he?
what do I think the physical injury?
Whatever it was,
Oh,
whatever he claimed his disability.
Oh, like maybe something with his spine. Like he can't walk.
You're gonna love this one.
Oh God.
Fear of work. Let me say that again. Fear of work.
How can that?
So he went. I know. All right. He's 20 years old.
Okay.
He gets anxious if he has to go to work, and he can't. So he can't work. No. Now, you would think that would be thrown out and just be laughable, right?
Yeah, I would hope.
He had doctors.
Well, not laughable, but like, I don't know, get therapy.
Well, there's a whole underground system here that feeds into this stuff, right? Of doctors who make money.
Of course.
So he found a doctor that diagnosed it, right? Oh my God. Came in. Now, of course, to the government's credit, they did disallow it the first go around. But I also, because I was running into the clinic there, and I knew there was a specific method of getting people disability benefits in the government. If you apply, they almost routinely turn you down. I don't care what it is the first time. If you appeal that, like 30% will get it like on the second time. If you appeal it again, like 70%. If you're strong enough and crazy enough and have the wherewithal, or a lawyer like me, to go for the third time, it's 100%. So all you have to do, right, is to play the system to the finish line. Now, most people get frustrated, right? They kick you out. And so they do a great job of keeping people who probably deserve benefits from getting it, because they just always just approve you, right?
Yeah.
And then, but if you know the system, and if you come to like a clinic like we did at Cornell, we won every case. I won every single case. And I felt bad, though, because I knew this guy was a scam. I knew he could work. He was still going to deal drugs. So now, because he's on disability, he doesn't count in the household. So he was living with his girlfriend. They were not married, because if they got married, she couldn't get all the other benefits, right? But he lived with her. He ran his drug business. And, they were making about this is back in the early 90s. They were making about $30,000 all in, tax-free. So that's effectively
a month?
No, a year.
Oh.
But think about that.
Okay, yeah.
That's
no,
housing,
still,
food.
Yeah, you can survive. Yeah.
Oh no, you can. And up in Ithaca, New York. Oh, absolutely, you can survive on $30,000, because that's net. That's net, no taxes. Right. So that means you're making $50,000.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And then he had his drug dealing business on the side. So.
Lord.
So anyway, so that turned me off to the whole social benefits program and the whole welfare system. I like to fix it, but it's not going to be fixed the way we're doing it. And if you accuse everyone of racism because you don't want to deal with the reality of these systems, then that's where we're going to be. And the last thing I'm going to say, Jenna, you can let you have the last word today. But seriously,
pressure.
I want people to pay attention here, because if we keep going down this path, okay. We could end up, and I don't want to say this because I really don't want to believe it, and you know me, Jen, I try to be optimistic here. I don't want to see kind of a civil war, but it happens. And when you break down ethics, morality, and when people don't look at each other as humans, right, where you can dehumanize people to the point where you don't care about killing them, that will be bad. And there will be a lashback, okay? And I don't want that. And I'm going to say to everybody on the right, if you're on the right, don't take this opportunity to get retribution or revenge or lashback. Be bigger than that.
Yeah.
Okay? Look to God, look to each other to save them. Let's have sympathy and empathy for people who don't get it. Let's not attack them. Let's try to win them over with logic and love and something, because we're all in this thing together. And believe me, 99% of the people in this country do care about other people. They're just having a hard time figuring out how to do it in the right way. So that's my last view on that. And I hope this is a wake-up call, and that Trump can take advantage of the fact that people are going to wake up to this, and let people vote in November. They can decide who they want as their leader. I was glad to see that President Biden looked a little bit more
He did. Yeah.
better, and
With it,
he looked more with it, and I think that's a good thing because it looks like he's going to be their candidate, and they should help him out. So that was good. We're going to go watch now. After this, I'm going to go watch and see how he did at the news conference today.
Yeah, it's happening probably.
But
right
Jen,
now.
I'm going to let you sign us off tonight because this is, by the way, this is the first time Jenna's been pulling this all together for me, and I can't tell you how great it is. She's helped me on this little journey. It's been a real a benefit to me. I think it's sort of
to both of us.
Yeah, psychically, it's been a good thing. I feel better that I'm not sitting on my ass doing nothing to try to help people. And if it comes off the wrong way, if anyone sees me as being a jerk or an idiot or not smart, you're probably right about all that. But but at the end of the day, I do care, and I'm not mad at you if you don't like me. I'm not going to not like you because you say things that I don't think are correct, and I'm going to try to be respectful about that. Oh, I do get a little bit annoyed at times, but I'll try my best.
Well, you're a human.
I'll try my best, Jen. So go ahead and sign us out. Give me your last thoughts, and then.
Last thought is just, let's try to just really respect one another. I think if we continue to use harm and violence, we are the ones that end up actually really suffering the most. And I know that with this channel, all you're really trying to do, John, and for me to help is to just spread positivity and knowledge, just to teach a different way to live life. So that's really, and I am sending my regards to Trump and his family, and I think because I don't like to see anyone in pain, and so it's a really, really important thing in my life. I don't want anyone, regardless. I don't like any of it. So
yeah, and by the way, will say one more thing. Even more so to the victims, and to be honest with you, even the family of the shooter. They must be in horrible pain.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're not crazy people, and they lost their son, right? And they're gonna have to live with this for the rest of their life. So my heart goes out to them too. I'm sure it must be horrific.
Tragic.
And please, people out there, don't go after them. Even though you can say, oh, why'd they buy him a gun? Whatever. And that is, I'm sure to this second, there's no way that they ever thought that their son would go out and do something like this. And their life is pretty much over. They'll never get over this. They lost their son, and he's also the guy who attempted to assassinate Trump. So that's not good. So remember that everyone's human here, and everyone's suffering. Okay, suffering.
And find God. That's how you'll help yourself.
Thanks a lot. So listen, subscribe, like, comment, ring the bell. By the way, if you like Jenna better than me, let me know. We might,
Yeah, let us know if you want me in more videos.
Yeah.
Comment below.
I'll get behind the console and put Jenna out here.
I like it back here.
Yeah, it's all good. But the good thing is I do have, just so you know, I'm not just a boomer out here. I've got my what are you, a Gen Z?
No.
Or a
Oh,
millennial?
yeah. No. I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial. You're the tail end of the okay. So
yes, I'm a millennial.
So I do have other perspective in my life. Matter of fact, almost all of my friends are Gen X, millennials, and the like. Because like I said, I started out later in life, so I kind of don't hang out with a lot of boomers. But so I bring a perspective, but I also listen very carefully to their perspective, and these are my children. So anyway, thanks a lot. We're going to go watch the Trump thing and see how that is, and we'll be back on this topic. We've got a couple of great things coming up. People have been telling us what they want to hear. They want to talk about the 25th Amendment, which would have been even more interesting.
Yeah, well, that'll be coming next.
Yeah, that'll come up next, and then we'll probably come back on this topic, and then maybe there's going to be plenty of stuff. Believe me, there's plenty of stuff to talk about. So we'll keep doing it, and we'll try to stay on top of emerging news and the election this year and a bunch of legal points. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Signing off.